All right, we are talking about author website strategies as a starting place. We're going to actually tackle two things today. So we're going to tackle a bit about author websites. We're going to have a break for lunch, and then we're also going to tackle the mailing list stuff after, since the two pieces really do go together. So first off, I'm curious to know if you can type into the chat for me. How many people have a website already? Just chime in with a yes, or if you want to paste in the link in case people want to go exploring later, then that's fun too. Okay, we have Donna does, Jennifer does, Tony, yes, Aaron, Trisha has a blog, Nicole has a blog, Donice is working on her site, Michelle Fogel has one, Bonnie does. Other Michelle is no, Tony's got one, okay, great. Leslie, a terrible one that I'm working on. Aaron's got one, Suzanne's in progress, and Marianne has one, okay, great. So we have a fair bit of people in here that do have an author website. I'm curious, for any of the folks who do not yet have one, can you share with us in the chat what is your primary reason for not having one yet? Okay. So not a real author. Everyone is a real author. I'm going to sick Donna on you, Stina. Careful with comments like that.
Seriously, you should have heard me gasp.
I saw it on your face. Donna's one of the, I can see about 4 people on the little edge there. Okay. You're working on biggest reason is fear. Yes, fear is definitely a thing. Need to make one, hoping to publish your first book this summer. That's Carol. Awesome. Yeah, so there's a fair amount of not knowing how, not feeling comfortable doing it, just really not feeling like you know what to do and how to do it. So we are going to do a little bit of a combination. We're not going to focus on a specific platform. We're not going to focus on specific tools so much today in this part. We're going to focus on overall strategy and what kinds of pieces your website might have and why you might want it and how you might use it, just so that everybody has a pretty good grounding in what the core pieces are and that we can figure out what you might want as your next steps. So why do you need an author website? There are a lot of reasons that you might want an author site. One second here. Why do you think you do? Type that into the chat for me. Why do you think you need an author website? Branding, visibility to promote yourself, links to buy your books, promotion, connect with readers, marketing. Okay, all of the above, building a potential audience, veracity. Good word, Natasha. Truth. Okay, a single point of contact for all my future books and readers. Yes, so many of those things. So brand consistency is a big thing, right? You want some sort of real estate on your website that you control, right? You want to make sure that all of the information that's there is accurate, that when people Google you, your own website is the first thing that they are going to find. You want to avoid confusion with authors with similar names. So if you have 2 or 3 authors out there who have names kind of like yours, but maybe write different books, or have slightly different spelling, or maybe write in a genre, or maybe they worse, write in the same genre as you, but they do it in a very different way. You want to make sure that you are distinguished from them. And so avoiding confusion by having that central source of information for them to go to is really important. You want all of your information together in one place. So I actually use my own website for reference way more often than I ever would have expected, because once you put out a book and then you move on to the next one, and now it's 3 years later and you're doing an interview and somebody asks you about that other book and you're like, yeah, okay. And so it's a good place to be able to pull your book descriptions and your your testimonials and your book reviews, and just it's a central place with all of your information. So it will work as a piece of reference for you as well. It can also save you time sharing info with others, because when somebody asks you about something or how to find your stuff, or what are you working on, or what books are in that series, it's really easy just to fire them back in an email a link to the page on your website that has that information. So that's a really great way that you can use that as well. And if you are planning to run Facebook ads, my friends, you need data to work from. You need to be able to target people who are already looking at your website. And that one of the ways you do it is you install a pixel on the back end of your website, and that pixel collects information about who is visiting your site. You can also get data about who is visiting your site and how long they're spending there and which pages they're looking at. So when you are working with your readers, you can see, oh, they're really interested in the recipes tab, or they're really interested in, the free books is the one that's getting all the people, or way more people are clicking on the audiobooks page than are clicking on the regular books page. That's going to help inform your own decisions about how you're doing things. So all of those are really important. And this one is perhaps the single most important reason, which is avoiding digital sharecropping. Now, what the heck do we mean by that? Well, what we mean is digital sharecropping is when you are building a platform on land you do not own, which means that if you are building your entire audience and set of followers on Facebook or YouTube, you don't own that land. It is not yours. You do not control it. Someone else makes decisions about it, which is why it is risky. So especially in the last maybe 6 to 12 months, I have seen so many horror stories and so many emails that I'm getting from authors who are talking about how their Facebook account got deleted, or their, profile on Goodreads suddenly was hidden or whatever. So if you get hacked, if somebody posts something from in your Facebook account that was not appropriate, Facebook can shut you down like that, and then you lose that connection to all of those readers. And that is happening a lot, actually, to people. And you can also have, sometimes authors will band together and they'll build a Facebook group around a specific type of book, and it's great to work together. But what happens if you have a falling out with those other collaborators you're working with? I've heard also multiple stories about people who, were locked out by the other admins, and they no longer had access to that group of people. So you really need to make sure that you are building something central that you control completely, and that no one can just decide to take away from you. So it is really smart to make sure that, yeah, it's great to use BookBub and to use YouTube and to use Facebook and all these other places if that works for you to build an audience, but don't let that be the only place, right? You are effectively a free advertiser for those people. If all you're doing is sending your readers to Facebook or sending your readers to somewhere else, you're hustling on someone else's behalf. Whereas if you own your website and it's the central piece of your strategy for where you get people, you use all those other places to bring people into your website. So you control the center of your promotional hub, and you control the center of your brand. So that's really, really smart. You can also control if there's ads or no ads and all of these other things. On the other platforms, we don't control that. And that can often actually be quite expensive as well, because when Facebook decided they weren't going to show your posts to people anymore so much if you were a page unless you paid them. You don't have a choice. You can't fight back against that. So it can also get really expensive if the rules suddenly change and you're not prepared to change with them. So that's why we don't probably want to be digital sharecropping. Okay, language is a thing. I know that a lot of the fear around website building and this whole world comes from people not really understanding what we're talking about, right? It is a foreign language. We enter a whole nother world. And so we are going to talk about each of these pieces independently so that you understand exactly what they mean. So websites, domain names, hosting, a CMS or site builder or platform, and SSL is another one that you'll hear thrown around a fair bit, and that is the secure sockets layer. And by the end of this, you will understand exactly what that is. 1 second. I have a trusty supply of cough drops because I stocked up. So, should keep my voice intact the whole way through. All right. So, first things first, your domain is your home address on the web. So, that might be, for me, I have crystalhuntauthor.com, and I also have cjhuntromance.com. You might have a .ca, .org, .biz, .net. There's hundreds of extensions that they've opened up now, so you can get all kinds of different domain names. But this is something you probably want to get pretty quickly. It's people claim them. You'll notice I'm crystalhuntauthor.com, which is because Crystal Hunt is a very famous daytime television actress who is now like a producer and a bunch of other things. And so we have had a bit of a battle over who gets what social media stuff running for like 15 years. And she got her name before I did. I think she was born that and I married that. So she had a bit of an advantage on the time scale. So I needed to add something to the end of my name to make sure I could still claim some consistent social media properties. So buying your domain name, it should only cost you between about $5 and $20 a year, depending on which registrars you're using. So it's really smart to buy that sooner rather than later. If you are going to write under your real name especially, then you should purchase that right away. If you are thinking you're going to write under a pen name, then you want to actually incorporate domain name searches into your decision about what pen names you're going to go with. If you can't get any kind of domain name that fits with what you're thinking of as a pen name, you might want to rethink that decision and find something where you can claim a primary domain so that you have that home to work with, because this is going to go on your business cards. It's going to go on social media everywhere. Ideally, you don't want it super long. So, you know, the longer it is, the harder it is to fit on stuff in a really concise manner. And think about that. If you have a Twitter profile or whatever that has a limited amount of characters and you want to be able to end your little blurb with a call to action to your website, you don't want that using up all of your real estate. You want to make sure you have some room to move there. So think about that. Hosting is like the property taxes you pay to have your online home on the land that you own, which is your domain name. So you basically have to rent space on the internet, and that's what your hosting payments are. Usually you're going to pay this monthly or yearly, and it could cost, sometimes it's free if you use something like WordPress.com, which we'll talk about in a bit, but free is never free. So keep that in mind in internet land. Free always comes at a price. Usually ads, often with limitations, often with an upsell. So free is still often digital sharecropping. It's just in a sort of an in-between land. It's like you have a leasehold on that land. You don't own it. So, you know, keep that in mind when you're looking at options. But that's what hosting is. So companies like HostGator, Bluehost, and GoDaddy are probably three of the biggest ones that you're likely to hear about or hear from trying to sell you things. And we can talk a little bit more about those after. But I mentioned I have a coupon, so I can give you a very, very, very good discount on really any of those, because we do have, I've used all of them in the past, and they all have affiliate programs, and they all have coupon codes that can be got if you refer enough people to them. So you should never have to pay full price for hosting is basically the lesson here. So if anyone's thinking about that, you can reach out and we will make sure you are hooked up with a coupon code. So there's also some companies, these are like construction companies that are created to help you build your digital home. So WordPress.com, Wix, and Squarespace are probably the three most common ones, again, that you're going to hear about. They are currently battling. I don't know if all of you see YouTube videos where it's just like, you know, every time you see an ad at the beginning of the YouTube video, I see one for Wix. It seems like they are all over the place trying to get some market share back. But those are the three biggest ones. Then they're builders. So if you see a site builder or platform, and then CMS means content management system, right? So that's what they're talking about if you see something that says a CMS. And that's really, it's that tool that's going to help you manage your content on that internet home that you have purchased and the land that you have rented. by paying your property taxes. Okay, so you don't necessarily need the company to be the interface. If you know what you're doing, you can buy your URL, your domain name. You can pay for hosting, which might be, $5 a month or whatever it is. And then you can use WordPress software, which you install on your own domain, which is free and it's open source. So that part doesn't actually cost any money. So you can use that to build your own online home. So when people talk about privately hosted WordPress, this is what they mean. So in our construction metaphor, it's like a DIY build your own house kit. When you get those log cabin kits and they send them to you and there's all the things and you make your own house, you still need to know how to build a house. Like, yeah, they gave you the materials, but it comes out of the box as a pile of logs and a whole bunch of bits and pieces to work with. It doesn't just look like a house. And so this is privately hosted WordPress. It takes a bit more knowledge, a bit more skill. You're going to have to hack away at it for a while and figure things out. And you might need to build some stuff, realize it doesn't look right, take it apart and do it again until you learn how to build your house, right? So that's where that fits in. When people talk about privately hosted WordPress, that's what they mean. And why do we care about SSL? So recently, I think last summer, Google decided that it was going to deprioritize any websites that did not have an SSL certificate activated. And it's basically just a security certificate that says your site is safe to go to. And most companies now for hosting will include an SSL certificate, but not all do. Some will charge you an extra $25 or $50 or $100 or $300 a year for that certificate. So when you're looking at options, make sure somewhere in their list of pricing and features, it says includes SSL. If you are not selling things directly from your website, you do not need the big, expensive, upgraded kind. You only need the basic one. And what you need, as you can see on the screen here, there's a little lock symbol beside my domain name in the search bar, right? That means this connection is secure. If I did not have that, when people tried to navigate to my website, Google might throw up a giant message that says, this site is not secure. Hackers could be trying to steal your information. Run away, run away. And that's literally what it says. And you don't want that. So even though you don't need a secure site, you need people to not be afraid to come to your website. So that's step one. And if you don't have it, Google will not boost you up in the rankings. And so anybody who does have a secure site is going to get shown on search results higher up than the people whose sites are not secure. So you always want to be showing up higher, right? People are lazy. They rarely ever click past the first page of search results. So you want to be doing everything you can to make sure that this website you've worked so hard to build is actually findable for people. One other thing on findability is that a lot of times it can be tempting to just buy your own domain and then forward it to something else. So I could buy crystalhuntauthor.com and I could forward it to my free WordPress site, which would be, crystalhuntauthor.wordpress.com. But if you do that, there's also a lot of settings on people's computer for security that actually block forwards, because that's a trick that spammers used to do. Is they would hijack your domain. Basically, they would put an automatic redirect in place so that when people tried to go to yours, you get bounced to like a gambling website or, buy these Viagra pills or whatever. So you'll see that sometimes on the internet if a site gets hacked and it just gets redirected. It's not so much that they got into your site and changed anything. They just start preventing people from seeing it. So you want to make sure that you have an SSL ranking, that you have a secure little lockdown thing there for folks to see, so they're not afraid to come to your site. Okay, I'm going to pause for a second there. Does anybody have questions about any of those bits of language or any other terms that you've heard used but have no idea what they mean? You can drop them into the chat, and I actually figured out how to see that at the same time now, so we should be good. Okay.
Crystal, are you going to make recommendations from between Wix and Squarespace? And
yeah, we can talk about that a little bit as we look at what you're looking for in terms of each person's kind of priorities. We will talk about the specific tools again shortly here.
Okay.
Michelle's saying if you want to start off without a paid website, you can switch from WordPress.com, which is the site that does everything for you and has free options at the beginning. You can start off with a free one and then you can upgrade it, or you can actually take all of your WordPress content from the free one and you can move it over to privately hosted later. And they actually have techs who can help you do that. Or we have tutorials that explain how to do it as well. So yeah, there are options. You don't have to commit immediately to what you're going to do forever. Just make sure that what you are committing to right now can turn into what you want later, so that you're not starting from scratch. You want to try to make things as sustainable and as able to grow with you as your career grows as possible. Forwarding domain to WordPress, but isn't the domain on WordPress? Okay, so you buy your domain from a company. So I could buy my domain from any one of about 50 different places. And then you have to connect that domain with wherever your hosting is. Your hosting might be through WordPress. You might have purchased your domain through WordPress, but your domain is not the WordPress owned domain. Those are two different things, which might be a little bit confusing. And I don't know if that answers your question, Susan Peters, but yeah, if you can. Yes, okay, great. And Black Rain has a question. I have my URLs with GoDaddy, but forward them to HostGator. Who would I get the SSL through, or should I move the URLs? So check with HostGator. It's your hosting that needs to be secure, not your domain name. So check with HostGator first. It used to be that you had to have your domain name inside your HostGator hosting account to get a free SSL certificate, but someone told me the other day that is not the case anymore. So just call, there's a free number to call for tech support on HostGator. Phone them and say, this is what I want to do. Do I have to move my domain into HostGator, or can I leave it where it is? And they will be able to answer that question for you and probably talk you through setting it up as well. Their tech support is fantastic there. Okay, that looks like all the questions for that moment. So part of your website design, its reason to exist, is to help you have a strong author brand that is consistent across all of your products. Your website is your central place to kind of show people who you are and what you're all about. And I'm not going to do a ton of talking today about branding or the actual design, because I have an entire set of free courses that are inside the Creative Academy on branding and design. There's color, there's typography, there's making a rockstar author logo. Each of them are only like 10 minutes long, but they're kind of a crash course that were built with the help of the graphic designer who I've hired and have hired to do all the work with my clients over the years as well. And so the two of us put together this set of kind of crash course education. And so I would highly recommend that before you're trying to do anything with your own website, you go in there and it will explain about how you pick a color palette and what that is and how it works and why you pick a font that you're, or two that you're going to use consistently, and how you put all the elements together in a way that is visually pleasing, and basically how to make yourself look professional even when you're not. So I would recommend for anybody who's going to try and do this themselves that you dive in there and you work through those modules before you go too far into the design portion. It is really helpful just to have an idea of what you're trying to do. But the biggest thing is, whenever you are building your own website, start with whatever templates or options are already installed in the platform that you're using, and really make use of all the time that the professional graphic designers put in there doing stuff. So yes, you want to customize, but you want to do the absolute minimum amount of customization so that you're not accidentally undoing all of the good stuff that those designers put together for you, right? Fonts and typography is a quick way to make yourself look like a rookie. And also color. Those are the really two really key things. And white space is the third. So not having enough clean, clear space and not understanding the dimensions of, you know, thirds, the golden third, and what your grid on the page looks like. So go watch those videos, and we can deal with any design-based stuff in a different day. So
Crystal,
yeah,
should I put the link to where those videos are.
Sure.
So for anyone who's in the, if you're not already a member of the Creative Academy, you'll have to join first. But if you are, then I'll just put the link in for you.
And it's free. There's no charge to access those modules. So come on in and play with all the pretty things we made. Okay, so once you have a website, what the heck do you put on it? And this is one of the things that people mentioned at the beginning was a little bit of a kind of sticking spot is, okay, yeah, what do we put and where? And for anyone who's just getting started, it can feel really intimidating, or you know, you might be like, well, what am I supposed to put on it? I don't have any books yet, right? I don't know what to do. But there are some really cool single page websites. So if you've purchased your domain name, you can put a single page template, and it's kind of like an online business card. And you might just have a couple sentences about the type of books you're reading. Maybe you have, you know, a contact form if people want to get in touch with you. Maybe you have been writing blog articles or something else, and you can feature a little bit of that content. Maybe you just put up a picture of your dog, whatever it is, that if it fits with what you are doing, then you just need a placeholder. You need something to be there and start populating that domain. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be elaborate. There are even some templates that literally look like business cards. They are, you know, horizontal. You put your name, your contact info, and like one sentence about what you write, and that's all. And that's all you need to get started. But something that people assume is that they will build their website when they have something, and then Google will just index them. But you don't actually instantly get put everywhere on the internet. You have to be there for a while before people can even find you. So it's a good idea to build it before you need it, so that you can actually start showing up in some of those searches. Okay. So what do we put? First things first, you need something people are going to land on when they get to your website. It should be super clear when you arrive on someone's website, who are they and what do they write? And there should be one really clear call to action. It's pretty easy to have too much going on a homepage. So that's something to keep in mind is you don't want to tell them everything, because if you give people choices, they don't know what to do. So you want to give them one thing to choose at the most. You want a clear call to action, and for them to be, okay, I've come here, I've seen this, I know exactly what I need to do next. So I'm going to give you a couple examples of this. I stole a bunch of examples off my own website because I have access and I don't have to worry about that. Sorry. Okay. All right, we have this. So I write kissing books. That's pretty clear. It says the word romance. We know that it's romance. And what is the call to action here? Anyone type in the chat? Free book. Yes. Get a free book. Whoops. That is the call to action, is if you click that button, which I just tried to do, and all it did was advance the slides, not show you the website page, it will take you to a page where you can enter your email and you will get delivered a download link for the free book. So there's not a lot of question there, right? They don't have to make a lot of choices. That's the starting place, because once I have them on my mailing list, then I can onboard them in the way that I want and call their attention to other things. So what I'm trying to do with my website, it really just entirely exists to try to get people on my mailing list so that I can follow up with them after, right? This is opening the door of a relationship with your readers. So we're going to come back to that when we do the mailing list portion, but for now, just kind of bookmark that in your brain. This is Allison McLean, who's a past member, possibly current member, and same thing, right? It's super clear what kind of books she writes from here. We've got contemporary, historical, and paranormal romance. You can enter your name and have them delivered, and you can see subtly there's also a link down at the bottom to all the different platforms that her books are available on, but the focus is really sign up below to get a free book, which is one of her contemporaries, and then lots of hot Highland dudes, because that's how Allison rolls. And here's a third example, which is Michele Amatrani's site. And so this one I picked as an example because I know some of you write in multiple genres. In this case, he writes in multiple languages. So there is a choice to be made. When you come to this homepage, it says, got stories for you, and you pick English or Italian, right? And then you go into a different website, basically, depending on which language you've chosen. So that he didn't just build the same website with half the page English and half Italian, or leave half the people disappointed. There are two options. So if you write in fantasy, but you also write romance, maybe you want to say, got stories for you, fantasy, or whatever. Or maybe you write 3 different kinds of romance and you say, what kind of happily ever after do you like, you know, historical, paranormal, or whatever, and you let them choose from that. So this is just an option for people who don't want to have completely different websites. And then once you go in, this is the landing page if you chose English in that particular website. So you can see now there's 2 possible calls to action. You could download free stories, or you could get his latest release, right? Those are the options, and the calls to action are pretty clear. Get this book, right? Okay. Any questions about home pages that we want to address before we move forward? Drop them in the chat. Doesn't look like it. Okay, perfect. Second section you're going to want to have is a books section, right? One of the main reasons people are going to come find your website is because they are looking for other books by you. They are looking for, what order should I be reading these books in? They're wanting, are there more books in a series? They want to know what's the next book you have coming out. Maybe they're looking for special features. Maybe they want to see what other people had to say about your books. You don't need as many reviews on your own website as you do on Amazon, for example, because if they're already coming to your site, they're already interested in you, is kind of the default thing. Whereas on Amazon, the reviews are helping them get interested in you. If they've taken the trouble to click on something or come and find you online, then they're probably what we would call a warm lead, right? They're already interested in what you have to offer. And you also want to make sure that you actually have buy links on your website. It's easy to forget that part, but you know, people made the effort to come to your site. You want to make it really easy for them to click and commit to purchasing that book. You don't necessarily want to sell directly from your own website, but you want to have a link that they can click to buy it from a store that they trust on a platform that they already use, right? A lot of people will not purchase something from an independent website, but they are happy to trust a platform that already has their credit card information, whether it's Kobo or Apple or Amazon or wherever. So you want to make it really easy to find that. And when I talk about a universal book link, that is a service that Draft to Digital offers, where you can sign up for free. You can make a link from your book, and it will create a page that has all of the stores that that book is available in. And so you on your website can just put in one link. So my learn more here, or my purchase link, can go directly to that universal book link page, and then people can see every single platform it's available on. So that's a really helpful option for you, so that you don't have 57 buy links, right? Because you see some pages where it's like, oh, here's all of the stores it's available in. But if you've used any kind of wide distributor, like if you've put your book up through Ingram Spark, or if you've used KDP to get it out for wide distribution, there's going to be books in hundreds of online bookstores, right? That's the beauty of print on demand and digital distribution. The book is going to be everywhere, and you do not want to be hunting down all of these places and trying to keep the links updated. So you make a universal book link through Draft to Digital, and then you only have one thing to manage for that book, which is way, way better.
But
So,
still,
yeah.
sorry, Danny's asking you to say that again.
To say that again, the universal book link thing?
No, never mind. I'll listen to the whole thing again later, because
Okay.
you passed that point. So don't worry about it. I'll watch it.
Okay. And some of this will become more clear after. We're going to talk about some of this stuff, like how it works with other things later. So just make a note of anything you're not sure about, and we will circle back around at the end as well. So the biggest thing for your books page is you need to make sure that you do it in a way that you can maintain it. So one of the the things when you hire somebody to build the site for you, they can probably do fancier things than you can. So you want to make sure that if you are having someone build you a site, but you are going to maintain it yourself, that you have the ability to add new books in the same way that they did them. So these little guys on shelves here, I got that from covervault.com, has free templates that you can use to make 3D books and stuff. So I downloaded a free template from there, and because I have Photoshop, I could use that. A lot of folks might use BookBrush to do the same thing. You could make your book images through BookBrush, and there's a masterclass in the Creative Academy on using that as well. So you can go and find that after. But they work really, really well to make them look fancy, but it's something that you can keep accessing if you need to later, so that you know you can keep up that look consistently. You don't want to have some done one way and some another, because it just doesn't look very polished. So whatever you do, make sure it's consistent. And if what you can do is just putting in your book cover, that's fine. It doesn't have to be fancy and elaborate unless you really want it to be. For me, I like to play with stuff and I love making the images. So that's part of the reward for me is, ooh, I get to update my website because I get to play with the pictures. So if it's going to make you more excited, go for it. If it's going to become a barrier, then just keep it simple, but keep it consistent. You want to make sure that when your books page is there, that you have a bit of information about what that story is. You want to say what formats are currently available. And if you can, you know, a little bit of testimonial or social proof doesn't hurt. So you can pull a bit of a review from one of your reviewers if you have an editorial review, whatever you can use to try to entice people to want to buy your book. Lots of people use excerpts because there's a lot of research to support that readers will often choose their next book because they got drawn into an excerpt or a sample chapter. So lots of folks will include a sample of their story underneath this information on their webpage. I have a question here. As someone who is in anthologies, does it make sense to put those covers up? Yes, absolutely. You want all of the products you are in to be listed there as well. And afterwards, I'm going to give you some homework. And part of your homework will be going to find other folks with books like yours. But it's really interesting to go and see, okay, if you go to our members page on the gvwa.org, there are links to the websites of many of our published authors. And so you can use that as a starting place to go and click and see how have people done their different books pages. And how have they done it if they have 3 books, or if they have 30 books, or if they're like Danny and is coming up on, I don't even know, like 75 or something. Danny Collins has just been super prolific. So you can see different structures of how people organize their books in their book sections, and then find one that feels good to you at the stage that you are at with the number of books that you have. If you have no books yet, then you can either just hide your books page until you do, right? You might, maybe if you're starting with just the one page, or you say books, and then you can say so-and-so is currently working on a, you know, a paranormal shifter romance, blah, blah, blah. And you don't have to put the book up yet. It's not ready. You can just have that page as a placeholder so that it's being indexed as part of your site. It's up to you, but then you'll be ready, which is good. But yes, you can always not publish a page. You can build it into your site and just not make it public until it's ready to be shared. So the events or media page, a lot of folks, maybe not this month, but in general, will do live readings or go and do author signings, be part of different events for things. So you might want to have an events page or somewhere where people can come to see where you're going to be if they want to come and see you in the real world. Another option, or in conjunction with this, is a media page. And so often authors will have a couple of different bios, maybe a really short one and a longer one, or like a professional one and one that's really fun and silly. And then the image that you want, your headshot that you want used for things, because if a blogger reaches out to you and says, oh, I want to do, you know, an interview with you, can you answer these 5 questions? And then they will almost always ask for the same set of things, which is, where can people buy your books? What, like, send me a bio and send me a headshot. So if you have a media page on your website, you can just send them the link to the media page and say, you can pick from anything on here that looks good to you. So you might have in your photos, maybe you have 3 different headshots that are different shapes and sizes, or maybe you have a black and white one, a color one, and then like a fun one that's something just like a candid shot, because some people prefer something that isn't your formal author photo, but is something of like you being a real person. So you can decide what you want on there, and you just say, pick whichever of these is going to fit your publication the best. And that's a real time saver down the line for that. Any questions about media events pages? All right. You really want to have some way for people to reach out and get in touch with you. If they have questions or they're looking for something they can't find, if they just want to tell you they really liked your book, you know, it's really nice for that to be an easy thing for them to click and get in touch. So you might have social media icons or links. Maybe you're not actually on social media. You can say, hey, I'm busy writing books. I'm not on social. You want to talk to me? Send me an email. Here you go. Whatever works for you, this is your chance to tell people where you want them to find you. So if you're clear about that and you direct that, maybe what you say is, hey, the only way to keep in touch with me is to sign up for my mailing list. And you have a form embedded right there where they can enter their email and get added to your VIP readers list or whatever you're calling it. We'll talk about more on that in a little bit. So yeah, definitely make sure you have some way for people to get in touch. If you are going to actually put your email address, you probably want to have like Crystal space at space whatever, so that the address is there, but you can't, there's folks who use like data scraping tools to just pull all the email addresses off web pages to add you to obnoxious spammy lists. So if you are going to actually say your email address on a web page, put spaces or spell out the word at between brackets, just so that they can't just copy paste it. It will just keep you on a few less spammy lists. A lot of people will use contact forms as well. So that's what this is. You can have that set up through your website where people put in their name, address, and message. I make them answer a math question, and then they can send the message. I figure if you can't answer the math question, you might not be old enough to read my books anyway. So that keeps my kid readers away from the slightly more scandalous kissy books, and that works well. So just know your readership and know how you want them to reach out, and then, you know, make your invitation specifically worded so that they understand how you want them to get in touch, right? And then they don't feel like they're bothering you, and you are directing them in a way that works for you, and everybody wins. Any questions about contact stuff? Okay.
Did you see, sorry, did you see the question that Nicole had? What if we have no books yet? It's back a little bit, but.
Yes, I answered that one back a little bit.
Oh, you heard, okay, my apologies.
Yeah. That's okay. Where do you get the icons? Okay, so there are a ton. My website's on WordPress, so there are a ton of plugins which you can install that have icon packs, and they are in all different styles and shapes and sizes. And so you can install specific icon packs, or you can Google social media icon enter, and it will pull up hundreds of them, and there's lots of royalty-free icon sets. So if you're building it by just putting an image on your page and making that a link, you can pull any set you want. But I would highly recommend that whatever you are doing, you pull all of them from the same set so that you get that nice polished look and all of your icons are consistent. If you're going with square, go with square. If they have kind of a shaded, sketched kind of a feel to them, use all of them from the same set. So make sure you figure out which platforms you want, and then you find a set that has all of them, because they don't all have all of them. And some of the author ones were traditionally a little bit harder to find. Things like Goodreads and Amazon and BookBub, the places where you might want to be followed, don't always show up there. They have added them all, I believe, as stamps in BookBrush. So if you're using BookBrush as your making the pretty things tool, then that is a good spot to go. You can probably pilfer from in there. Steal like an artist, right? Okay, blog functionality. So people ask, is blogging dead? That is something that has come up. Blogging has shifted for sure. And when I talk about a blog for the rest of today and in general with the stuff that I'm teaching, I don't mean like talking about what you had for breakfast. When we talk about blog functionality, it's really just the built-in capacity of your website to have you posting articles or adding regular content to your site. Okay, so when you have a blog post, it lets you tag things and have categories for things, and it lets you connect that content that you're posting to some other services. Like in your Author Central dashboard, you can connect your blog, and anything you post there will get pulled automatically into your Amazon account and show up to your folks who are following you on your Amazon dashboard. So that's a very valuable way to push out announcements about things like new releases and, you know, if you've got special features kind of stuff, or if you are trying to lure people in to join your newsletter list, you really want to be doing that from in there if you can, because it will automate it, right? And you also can use some of your newsletter services can automatically pull anything you post there and send out to the folks on your mailing list. So that's something else we'll talk about a little bit later. But Goodreads also has the ability to connect your blog if you're an author. So don't think of it like, oh, I need to be every day posting some little thing that's, you know, about what I was doing. The weblog, the traditional version of it as basically an online journal, has kind of died. But using the structure of that to post content that your readers will find valuable has not died. And you can, of course, post video content. You can post all kinds of different things there. So you're not really limited in what it is. And as an example, in my Explore River's End section, which is basically bonus content, I've set it up as a gossip section. So it's meant to be like the local newspaper's gossip section, and it has little articles, but it uses that blog structure on the back end and it pushes it out. I also use the blog structure for recipes. And so my categories are recipes and gossip, and I can tell it which one it is, and it will auto file it into the right place for me on 2 different pages. So remember to kind of give yourself permission to use these tools in whatever way is going to work for you. It doesn't have to look exactly like how other people have done it. Okay, so how do you know what tools to use, right? We talked about different hosting options, and there's different interfaces or content management systems. So things like Squarespace, things like Wix, constantly sending you ads. And then there's the public and privately hosted WordPress. So how do you know what you should be using? Well, part of it is definitely going to be budget driven, right? You may need to start off with one of the free options and then work your way up to something that you're paying for as you get further along in your writing career. Maybe you start with a free one because you've registered your domain name, you want to do something with it, and you don't want to wait too long to get started. So that's not a problem. But really, you want to look at your budget. You want to look at how does that tool feel to you to use, right? Because somebody can tell you that something's going to work great, but if you absolutely hate using it and your brain doesn't work that way and you don't want to take the time to learn, or you've tried to learn and it's just not working for you, then something else will be better, right? There is no one right answer to this. There is no perfect solution. There's just a solution that's going to work for you. If you find it functional to use, then you will use it. And if you don't, it's going to be a source of frustration. So the biggest and most important thing, you really need to be able to just decide for you what feels like a good fit. And the only way to know that is by testing them. So a lot of them, you can start with a free option and you can see how it feels. Or you can watch some online tutorials. If you go to YouTube and you look at, how to build a website on Wix, you're going to find thousands of YouTube tutorials. Just watch a couple of the tutorials and see what the buttons look like and what the dashboard looks like, and Is it easy to use the way the person is explaining it? And you've got to poke around. So a little bit of effort at that knowledge gathering stage of things before you make a decision is really going to pay off for you along the way. Access to support. So there's lots of quirky little free tools that you can get that would let you do things without paying any money, but they don't always come with any support. And so when you're looking at these tools, if you pick something like, if you pick one of the big three, like Wix or WordPress or Squarespace, there are thousands or hundreds of thousands of tutorial videos and people who blog about how to do stuff with those platforms. And I don't think there's anything I've ever looked for that I haven't found a video to teach me how to do when it comes to WordPress. So for me, I really like that there's an entire world of developers who are putting stuff out for free or for affordable. So I don't need to hire a programmer to custom code stuff. I can pay $20 for a plugin that gives me that batch of perfect widgets I want to do whatever it is I want to do. So you need to think about, you know, is there support available? Is that part of what you're paying for in your package? And is that tool still going to exist in 3 years, right? When we look at sustainability, you need to think about that. If it's a small startup company that doesn't really have the infrastructure support and it hasn't been around for very long, it may not still exist in 3 years. Do you want to start over? Sometimes that's a gamble that's worth taking. If you get a great deal on something on AppSumo and it's a lifetime deal, well, maybe the $50 you spent, if that gets you 3 to 5 years, is good enough, right? And then you will start over. But just being aware that you're choosing that, because, you know, the big stuff that is really well supported will be more sustainable long term. And then growth potential. So again, some of these tools we might choose because they're super easy at the beginning, but they can't grow with you, right? They are limited in the integrations they let you use, or maybe they don't interface with a mailing list software, or maybe they don't play nice with BookFunnel, which is one of the things we use to deliver the free content that people get when they sign up for your list. So you just need to think about, what do you want to be able to do right now? But also, what do you want to be able to do in 6 months? And what do you want to be able to do in a year or 3, right? And you can think about that as, okay, well, now I have no books. When I have 1 book, I want to be able to do this. And when I have 5 books, this. And what if I have 30 books? I want to be able to do this. So just think in terms of, how big do you want to grow your author business? And how will this tool do in terms of supporting you to do that? How can you tell if it will play nice with BookFunnel, is the question from Natasha. Yes. So the way you can tell that is you can Google, let's say it's Wix. Does Wix work with BookFunnel? Enter. And Google will pull you into the BookFunnel help documents and potentially the Wix help documents, and it will say yay or nay. And if you don't find that article, then you manually go to the BookFunnel support section and you send them a message and you say, hey guys, I'm looking at building a website with X. I want to know if BookFunnel works with that. And they will tell you. So the best source of information is always the tool that you are about to purchase and find out if it's going to integrate. They are very invested in helping you make that work. And so often, even if it doesn't work straight out of the box, they might be able to say, okay, well, you won't see it listed in this section as working already, but if you do this and this, then yes, it works. So you can save yourself a lot of hassle just by first Googling and second asking the developers. And we have many, many times where we have gone to a developer and said, hey guys, we're trying to do this and you are not one of the listed mailing list providers that works with BookFunnel. Like, can you fix this? And they actually go to the other company and they make it work. So by asking for it, you're also helping the other authors that are coming behind you, because if they get enough people asking, they change the software. And that has happened enough times to know that it's a real thing and they will listen. They want to help make it easier for their audience to buy their tools and make use of them. So don't be scared to ask for what you want and give them an opportunity to deliver it for you. And how they handle those requests may also help you make your decision, because if you can't get a hold of their help support, and if their help documents are terrible and they don't tell you what you need to know, and if the people don't treat you nicely when you are asking about an integration or something like that, that's not the company for you, right? And so that interaction will help you make a smart choice, because, you know, I have definitely stayed with certain companies where I know there are other options, and maybe they even do a few more things, or maybe they're a little bit cheaper, but I really like the tech support that comes with some of the companies I use. So I will make a conscious decision to stay because of the customer service. So I think that is really important to make sure that you kind of test out that relationship that is probably going to be quite an ongoing one for a long time. Okay, so some questions to answer. This is where you get to do some work for the next few minutes here. Is I want you to dig out those notebooks and actually answer some of these questions. You don't have to go super long form, but let's take 10 minutes or so here, and each of you just work through these questions. So what do you want your website to do for you? Who is your audience? How often do you think you'll need to do updates? Like if you're planning to put out, a short story every month, that's very different than if you think once a year you're going to have a book coming out from a publisher, right? If you're trying to decide, should I hire help or do it myself? Well, if you don't need to do updates very often, then maybe you hire it out, and that's okay. How comfortable are you with technology? How much time are you interested in putting into learning? What is your budget for getting help? And what option gives you the most freedom and control over your own content? Okay, so we'll come back and walk through some of this after, but for now, just try and answer those 7 questions in your journal for yourself. Go with your gut. Don't worry over the technicalities or anything. Just answer the best you can. And anyone who needs a bathroom and refill your tea break, now is the moment. Any questions you have, type them in the chat and I will quietly answer them so we don't interrupt everyone who's focusing. Okay, we have a whole bunch of really good questions coming up here. So what I'm gonna do, I think, if we are, do people still need to see the questions or can I go back to faces? We're good. Lots of people shaking their heads. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna stop sharing and then we're gonna address some of the good questions that are coming up in the chat here, as there are lots of good things we can talk about. So, okay, so Michelle had asked, do I have a set of recommendations that will make all the tools I recommend work well? Can you clarify that a little bit for me, Michelle? Are you just wondering, like, is there a set of 3 things that we know will work for sure together, or like, how do you figure that out? Where are we going there? My mouse is possessed by demons. Okay, there we go. Book funnel, etc., all the tools. Okay, so there is not a single answer to that, because it is, if you choose this as your website platform, this mailing list provider works with it, and then BookFunnel can or can't integrate with that mailing list provider. It's, so there isn't one right answer to that question. There are 5 possible answers to that question, depending on what you're trying to do. So yeah, I don't really know how to answer that particular question. You would have to maybe get a bit more specific with an actual scenario to walk through in order to be able to be useful there. But the biggest thing is, and we are going to talk about this more in the afternoon when we talk about mailing list integration, is you need to know what is the flow of people coming to you and then how you want to interact with them. That's the most important part. You can use just BookFunnel on its own, actually. You can email people from the back end of BookFunnel. You can use it to make landing pages. You can give out books through it. If you are so opposed to having a website and or it's just not a possibility for you, you can just use BookFunnel and be, using those links to get people onto your mailing list and to stay in touch with them. It's not great to do that, but it is an option if that's what you have available to you. You can also, a lot of the mailing list tools will let you make landing pages. And in fact, MailerLite just announced that they are letting people build full websites in MailerLite now. So you could actually use MailerLite with some website landing pages to create effectively a website online that is fully integrated with your mailing list functionality as well. So those aren't going to make as much sense until we do the mailing list portion of today, which is going to happen after lunch. So we can come back to how all the pieces fit together after we've done that bit, because I think some of that stuff is going to make a little more sense when we have the additional context. So the clarification for number 7 was something somebody asked about. So number 7 is, what options give you the most freedom and control over your own content? So that you won't necessarily be able to answer for yourself yet, but I did want you thinking about it. So Tony, I think it was Tony, asked earlier, how do you choose between like Wix or Squarespace or WordPress? How do you know what is going to be the best option for you? That's partly why I just got you to answer that set of questions, is because a lot of people find Squarespace to be easier than WordPress. It's kind of a drag and drop interface, and Wix is also the same. They tend to be any of the content management system options, where that's like hiring a contractor to build your house or to help you build your house. Those tend to be a bit more expensive. So you should be planning around probably $20 a month. For those, you can look at the pricing pages on any of those companies, and they will have a really easy to compare price chart that breaks it out. So, in column 1, it'll say the free version, where you don't get your own domain name. It's like, donnies.wix.com. It's not donniesauthor.com or whatever. So, you need to compare what are they actually offering you. And with like free WordPress, they put ads on your site and you don't control what those ads are for. So depending on what you write, if you write books for kids or whatever, like you maybe don't have the option actually of choosing the free one because you don't want to not have any say over what is being advertised on your page. If you're looking for less technical, more drag and drop, then Squarespace and Wix usually do kind of fit that bill. If you're looking for full integrations with your mailing list providers and all of that other stuff, they may have some, but they will not have as much as WordPress does. But again, there is no one straight answer to that. You have to know what you're trying to do and then look at, do these three things play together? So that's why it's really smart to sit down and map out how you want your readers to be finding and interacting with you first. And we are going to walk through some of that stuff after lunch together as we do the mailing list piece. So I think we'll revisit the which tools do which at the end of today again, after we've talked about the mailing list stuff and you have a better idea for your own self. There's a lot more applied information in the second half. I'm gonna get you working about 60% of the time this afternoon. So that'll be where you start to really process some of this stuff and think about how it works for you. What do things cost? Yeah, again, there's a huge range. I mean, some of the stuff like a domain name is going to be $5 to $25 a year. Something to be aware of, as we are most of us Canadian, the Canadian dollar is doing terribly right now. And like 98% of all of the stuff you see online is US dollars. So we basically had a 30 to 40% increase in our expenses or whatever that difference is going to look like for right now. The good news is all of our royalties coming in US dollars also go up correspondingly. So there's kind of a shift there up and down as that currency kind of values and devalues. But for your own budgeting purposes, just be very aware that most companies, when you see pricing online, that is US dollars. So if you're not sure, just double check. And ask for clarification there. They often won't say that until your credit card goes to process, and then it becomes quite clear that that is the case. So Tony's saying he pays about $200 a year for Wix. Hosting at Bluehost is about $300 for 3 years. So sort of, if you get a discount, you can expect to pay a lot less. So I've got a coupon for anybody who wants it for HostGator, which gets you 65% off. And you can get up to 3 years on your initial package. So that means you could actually get 3 years for about $150 or thereabouts. And so if you're very bold, you can actually hop every 3 years from Bluehost to HostGator back to Bluehost and be a new customer every time. There are ways. Most people find that that's kind of a pain in the butt, so they don't do it. But you could, if that was the driving force behind your budget, you have options. There are customer retention strategies, there are sales, there are all of these things. So I will make sure you all have that link and coupon code that you can use, and it basically gives you the Black Friday pricing all year round. So you can do that. And Bluehost has at Black Friday, they all give massive discounts. So if you are thinking that you're looking ahead and you're going to want to set up your website, most companies, most tools do really big Black Friday sales. And so if you know that within the next year, you're going to want to get it going, make sure you set a little timer or notification for yourself that when Black Friday comes around, you are going to have on your wish list to acquire the pieces you need for your website. The only thing I will say, don't wait for a sale on domain names. Buy your own name as soon as you possibly can. And .cas are more difficult to manage and give you less options, for the record. Yes, it is Canadian. Yes, that is lovely. You cannot register them with just any domain registrar. They don't move as easily. You have to keep a whole different set of records updated around that. There's a different governing body over the Canadian domain names, and you have to supply your contact information in a different way, and they check up on you. So only Canadians can own .cas, and they are quite strict about that. So, if you don't want to deal with all of that extra fun, then do not pick a .ca. And most people will not go to a .ca anyway. When they're typing, they default to .com or one of the other more commonly used extensions. Okay, do the coupons work after the contract you've already purchased expires? They're generally just for new customers, so only if you're hopping companies. But a lot of the companies will port your stuff over for free. So you can sign up as a new customer, like on Bluehost, port your stuff over or have them move it for you. And then in 3 years, go back to the other one. So that, that's a thing. If you need to save the few bucks, it is an option. Magic fairies are called web designers. Yes, that is a true story. There are magic fairies that will make your website happen for you to a certain extent, but you must be able to tell them what you want and where. And if they are not experienced at working with authors, you may get a website that does nothing for you. So you need to understand that the way authors do websites is not the way that small businesses do websites. Your goal as an author is to get people onto your mailing list. You're not selling things directly from your website. It is not just an informational site. And the conventions in the author land are quite different of how we do websites. So, it can be really frustrating if you just hire somebody who doesn't have any knowledge of publishing. If that is the case, you have to be very explicit in your instructions of how you want it to work and provide them with examples of, I want my site to work like this, and be really, really clear in your instructions to them. If you want somebody to help you who's gonna lead you through the process, then you need to hire a web designer who has worked with authors before, because otherwise you may find yourself frustrated and disappointed. Do I recommend choosing the additional protection or site lock essentials when going with HostGator? For the most part, you don't need the upsells they're trying to sell you. I do usually recommend CodeGuard because it does an automated backup of your entire website on a daily basis. And I think it's $20 a year. So for that, yes, that's definitely worth it. If you're registering domain names, your information will become public. So there's a Whois database, and you can look up any domain in there, and it tells you who owns it, and it tells you their contact information. So if you are looking at doing that, if you're only going to have one domain or maybe two, you may want to pay the extra $20 a year for privacy. And then it's not your information that shows, it's the person you bought it from. So if you select privacy and you're buying your domain from HostGator, HostGator's information shows, not yours. And so that means your home address, your contact phone number does not get displayed in association with that domain. And that is a smart thing because you will get a lot of spam from people trying to sell you domain or website building services and app building services and all kinds of stuff because you end up in that database. You also have the option of, for your business, if you are going to have a whole bunch of domains for different series or different author names or whatever, you may just want to rent a PO box that comes with an address. So like our local UPS has a physical address as well as a PO box, and for $120 a year, you could use that as your registration address on all of the domains that you are purchasing, and then you don't have to pay for privacy on all of them. So I think I pay for about 50 domains right now for all the different businesses and projects and all of the things. So there's no way I would want to pay $25 US a year for each of those domains to be private. So then a box makes all the sense. And then you can also use that same address on your newsletters. When you go to send out your mailing list stuff, you need an address at the bottom of that. And if you do not want to be disclosing your home address, then having a business address is very smart. So yes. Okay. Yes. So Aaron just brought up a really important thing. So that you will get spam telling you that your domain renewal is up. And it's domains.ca that is the worst one. So it's actually looks like a Canadian company, and they send you a reminder notice that your domain is about to expire and you have to click there to renew it. And what they actually do if you click there is they do renew your domain. So they are a real company and they actually do that, but they also move it over to their own servers, and they charge you like half a fortune every year to do that. So you end up actually paying for hosting and your domain through them, and they have moved it over to them. And so they now control it, which you do not want to do. So be very, very good about recording when you set up hosting, when you set up your domain purchase. Make notes for yourself of which company you set it up with. And if what you are getting does not match who you purchased it through, do not click on anything. You should always be able to log directly into your own account and check if it's going to expire or not expire. Most of them have automated renewals turned on. So you can make sure that that is turned on, so it will automatically bill your credit card and you will not lose your domain name, but you also don't then have to worry about people sending you stuff to click on it because you know it's covered and you already have an automatic renewal turned on. So yes, that is an excellent thing to point out. Thank you, Erin, because that is super frustrating and it is not easy to undo that once it has been done. So recording all of your access info and setting a reminder for yourself in your calendar or your task management program that will pop up. If I know my domain is good until January 1st, 2023, I will put a notice in my iCal to pop up on December 1st, 2022 that says this is going to renew in a month, because if you've signed up with a great deal for 3 years, you're going to have a surprise expense in 3 years that's going to be like 65% higher than what you originally paid if it renews on the same plan, right? So you want to make sure that you have budgeted for that, that your credit card is still active, not expired, and that you actually want to continue with that service at that time, right? So you want to set up those reminder notices to give yourself a heads up. Yes, keeping a notebook of all the info on your domain is great. Whatever format you want to keep it in, whether you have like a secure password store program or whatever, is all good. Okay, so WordPress domain name. Leslie's saying I have a WordPress domain name. Should I have another one? So do you mean it's you bought it through WordPress, or it's like lesliewibberly.wordpress.com? And I got a yes. Okay, if it's lesliewibberly.com, but you purchased it through WordPress, there's no problem with that. If your hosting is on WordPress, it's nice to have your domain registered through WordPress so you have one account to log into, everything is held together. If you're going to be using HostGator, it's nice to have your domain registered through HostGator and you're hosting on HostGator, so it's one company and you've got everything in one place. Not everybody has everything in one place. Some may have their domain with GoDaddy and they're hosting with HostGator. They will play nicely as long as you keep both of them going, but it is often easier just to have everything in one place. Now, if you bought your domain from one and then you got a great deal on hosting from another, you can move your domain from one registrar to another. Okay, you fill out a little form, you click a couple of buttons, and they move it over into your other account. So you are not forever married to wherever you initially purchased it from. And if you did hire a company, like some people hire a web designer and that person buys their domain name for them and then renews it and just bills them every year, then you don't own that domain. The person who built your website does. So if that is the case and you hired somebody to do that, you need to transfer that domain into your own name so that you control it going forward, because otherwise we are dangerously digital sharecropping again, right? If that web designer decides to like go travel Asia or something and they forget to renew your domain, it's gone. So you need to make sure that you control it and you can make those decisions in the moment without being dependent on somebody else. If you are getting somebody to help you build your site, you want to be in control of those accounts, and then you can give them temporary access while they work on your stuff, and then you take it back and you change all your passwords, right? And you resecure everything so that they do not have access to everything. Okay, I feel like that was all the questions I remember from the sidebar. Did anybody have one that I missed and didn't get back to? I feel like that was a lot of information.